meeting of the Winthrop School Board to order. Please join me in rising to the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, our roll call has everyone here. I feel like it's been a long time. State representatives and board members, this is great. Are there any adjustments to the agenda?
No.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the Winthrop School Board meeting of February 26, 2025 as written. So moved. All those in favor? That's unanimous vote. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll enter into our first public comment section. If there's anyone in the room who'd like to speak, you may step up to the podium and give us your name. And if there are any folks on Zoom who would like to do the same, just let us know. Okay. We'll go ahead and close our first public comment section and move into our report, starting with our superintendent report.
Thank you. This evening, I want to report the resignation of John Kennedy, the floater bus driver. And as I reported at the last board meeting, due to our budget issues, we have reduced the hours for this position, and we're hoping to hire soon. I have some not so good news about the budget for FY26 concerning health insurance rates. We predicted and budgeted that they would not go up by more than 10%, and we learned this past week through a communication that they may go as high as 18% due to increased claims, absence of a surplus in their budget, and higher medical costs. So we have now adjusted our budgeted amount to 15% for an increase, which increases the budget by about $50,000, raising our expenditure increase to 9.7. Again, I want to emphasize that 5.6% of this 9.7 is to get us out of the hole that was created this year. I'm looking forward to having you hear the rest of the administrators present this evening. And then the next opportunity for the community to weigh in on the budget will be on March 20th at the high school cafeteria at 6 o'clock. And we encourage the public and the board and the council to come and ask questions in a more informal way. And on our website under budget, you can review any of the budget documents that we have presented since my initial overview. Last week at the board meeting, the auditor spoke about a significant deficiency at the middle school with the student activity accounts. I want to assure the board and the public that procedures have been created and tightened over the past year to address this issue. And the board's next learning opportunity will be at the middle school on March 28th at 1 o'clock to attend the town meeting. And on Monday, we did our first round of interviews for the grade school principal opening. And tomorrow we are interviewing the finalists for that position, and I hope to bring to the board at our next meeting my recommendation who will replace Jolene Randall, who can never be replaced for the next school year. Principal Randall and I met with the Rotary Club yesterday to brainstorm ideas around a partnership to increase our students' literacy skills in the grade school. It was a very productive meeting, and we appreciate how much the community is willing to partner with us in helping all students to succeed. And we will give you more details once everything has been finalized. And we want to just thank the Rotary for all they do. And they are a small but very mighty group. And today was Wacky Wednesday at the grade school, and I was invited to read to our second graders. I chose to read the book The Dot by Peter Reynolds, and I was impressed with how deeply our students could talk about the meaning of the story. And this, to me, was just further evidence of how well our youngest readers are beginning to comprehend text and are on their way to becoming critical readers. And that concludes my report for the evening.
Thank you very much for your report. Does the board have any questions regarding? we have our spring coaches outlined. And then item 4.3 is our school board chair report. This week, we don't have anything to report out. We just met last week, and so it's been a pretty quiet week. So no chair report for us this week. But we'll go ahead and turn it over to Abby, who's going to give us our student representative report.
Winter sports have concluded with each team having positive takeaways from the season. Both basketball teams had a strong run, making the playoffs and competing well in their respective games. A special congratulations to the girls basketball team for receiving the sportsmanship award. Nordic and Alpine skiing, despite their small team sizes, had impressive seasons with several top 10 finishes at the state level. Hockey achieved a great playoff win, and the indoor track team saw many surprises at states with numerous PRs and top finishes. The planning for the upcoming March Madness is completed, and we're excited for the addition of some fun games, including hobby horsing, cardboard, hamster wheel, and Jurassic Race. The Winthrop High School Drama Club is excited to announce its participation in the Maine Principals Association One Act Drama Festival this weekend in Yarmouth. Our talented cast and crew will be presenting the One Act play Exposure on Saturday at 2 p.m. Exposure explores the complexities of today's digital world, where everyone's actions are broadcasted on the internet for everyone to see and judge. That's it for this update.
Thank you very much. Does the board have any questions? Okay. Appreciate your report. That's great. Okay, turning into item 4.5 with our committee reports, starting with finance
We did not meet.
and policy. We did not meet. And negotiations, we meet regularly. So we had a meeting this week. We have more coming up. Okay. The administrator reports, we don't have any for this week because we have our administrator budget presentations, starting with Jay Dufour with Winthrop High School. Thank you.
You just gotta speak up.
Thank you, sir.
You can.
Good evening. So I believe we are looking at the Winthrop High School budget, which is on page 8 of your packet. Give you a brief overview and take any questions that folks have, certainly. So looking at the baseline budget, in the first box, we have some items that have been discussed with this committee before. So we have student assessments, costs, a couple of things there, NWEAs and ESATs, which will impact the budget as we move away from the ESSER funds, or better known as the COVID funds, as those sunset or have sunset, to be able to pay for those for the budget. The other one that was a little bit of an issue last year, again, a philosophical belief of mine, is the AP tests. That when I came into the position, the AP tests were something that parents paid for. We shifted on that last year to my satisfaction. I was very happy that the school was able to find the money for that. This year with the frozen budget, we've sort of gone backwards again, which is unfortunate. So with the numerous AP offerings that we have, we do have a number of kids that take AP tests. So you see the cost that is outlined in the budget there, so that the school could pick up the tab on those tests. The next bullet is, again, looking at some furniture replacement. I brought this up before. When you have a 20-plus-year-old building, the furniture in some of the areas of the building, it's an upkeep, and there's a replacement of furniture needed in certain areas of the building. The other cost there is we have a desperate need of a space for an additional conference room. Right now, we're using the library conference room, which is overused, and it is not big enough to be able to have meetings. For example, like our dropout prevention committee, there's no way I could fit everybody in there. It's not a very big committee, unfortunately. So we're looking at a space and trying to get some furniture to be able, that we have professional meetings, 504s, IEPs, parent meetings, that we have a professional space to be able to meet with folks. And it could double as a space for a position I'm going to talk about a little further down. So it would have a dual purpose. Professional development, again, something impacted this year with the frozen budget. I think teachers are doing a pretty good job, and administrators are doing a pretty good job of trying to find PD activities that are free, that are offered at no or minimal cost. One of the things that I've told my staff many times is that I really don't like it when they have to pay for things out of their pocket, but they are. And if it's something that a professional development seminar that's $50, $65, we do have some teachers that are paying for those and attending those. So looking at our school goals, which we did an activity on during our release time today, some topics there that we want to be able to offer PD for both administrators and for teachers around school culture, attendance, classroom management strategies with the younger staff, and some technology pieces. So going down to the next piece, and that next green shaded area is safety, and this came out of the work of my safety committee at the high school, which got going over the course of last summer, to look at what Tiff and I sort of coined as to-go buckets for each room in the building, that in a situation where we would have to evacuate or lock down, or there may be any kind of emergency, that we would have something in each classroom that would allow for, teachers and kids, if they had to stay in that classroom or to go or evacuate somewhere, they would have some supplies. Could be blankets, could be certainly a first aid kit, non-perishable food items or snacks. You think about it if you're in a room, personal hygiene products, other things that students might need. So Tiff and I and Alden Livingston and some of the other members of the committee brainstormed that. And that was an ask that I brought to Becky. Wasn't sure how much traction that would get, but she was gracious enough to sort of push that to this level. It's one of those things that, in an emergency situation, you just never know, and you want to be prepared. The big ask in the next green shaded area is the improved student achievement, and looking at a half-time interventionist teacher. When I first brainstormed this with Becky, I had this great idea. I have one maybe every month or so, a good idea. How we could get someone to flex the schedule of that individual so that we get the best bang for our buck. So in a traditional year, we have, spring school, we have ice week or frosty week, we have mud week during the vacations, and then we have summer school. So not only would this person act as an interventionist, a graduation coach, somebody who would have a caseload of students who are behind or needing interventions or extra support, but they would also have a schedule that would be flexed, that they could start later in the fall, like in October, and then could work those intervention weeks when teachers are off for vacation, and then could also work at summer school, which would lessen the burden on not only teachers, because we worry about them burning out, working all that on their vacation times, but also would be more friendly on the budget, because when teachers work their vacation or summertime, that's extra that we have to pay. And if we flex somebody's schedule, again, it just makes sense in a couple of different areas. And the space that I'm thinking of would also double as a space that the interventionist teacher, when that person would be at work, would be able to use that space when it's available to be able to work with kids on their caseload. So that space, that furniture would serve a dual purpose. And again, that person would be part of the RTI team, the Dropout Prevention Committee team. I coin that phrase graduation coach, because really that's what they are, is really tagging kids in and staff in and working with staff at whatever level the kid needs, whether they're behind in class, whether they're behind in credits, whether there's some kind of sickness where they're out for an extended period of time, whether they come to us and they're deficient and they come to us from another school, that, you know, we have this caseload where this particular individual would work with them directly and report to me, report to Alexis, and report to guidance, and be part of the team. And that we would build that schedule into the master schedule so that kids who were on this person's caseload could also still have all the other interventions that we have, like the learning labs, like the support tutorials, etc. And then at the bottom, you'll see our projected enrollment. Sometimes, as you know, never been a real data guy. I taught social studies for many years. Like data a lot. But, there's always meaning behind the data. And when you look at that initially, you say, wow, geez, the high school numbers and the class size look pretty low. And I would agree with you when you look at that at a first glance. I think there's two things that I want to mention along that framework. One is that we're fortunate at the high school to be a small school and offer the variety of resources and courses that we do to allow kids a real diversified education and lots of opportunities for a small school. Secondly, it allows us, and it allows us to, certainly we do have some classes that are big, but it also allows us to, for kids who have higher needs, for kids that need a little bit more time and support, for those classes to be smaller so that the kids get the interventions and the attention that they need from staff. And we're mindful about that. But when you stick everything into the calculator and you do the averages, when you see that, it can be, well, geez, it may give you pause. But those are that's what I wanted to really mention about our class sizes, is that these numbers can be a little bit deceiving, but I think it's really important when you have kids who have needs or higher needs that those class sizes are smaller. And that's it, and I'll take any questions that folks have.
Thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions for the board? Monica?
Yes, just wondering how you came up with the figures for the go-to buckets and then for the salary for the half-time interventionist teacher. It seems like a healthy salary for a part-time position.
Do you want to take that?
Yeah, I probably can address that. I think we budgeted at a master's 10. So that includes full family, what they would get for like full family.
Okay, so
Right.
that's budgeted for, right, actual they would leave us with some money budget.
It could, and if the person we bring in, if they're at the top of the scale, we're going to be paid. So, yeah, so we kind of budget in the middle.
And for the to-go buckets, there's a little bit of homework with me and Amazon, sort of developing a list with teachers like Tiff and Alden Livingston to figure out what the basics would be, and pricing those out, and then doing that one for each classroom. And as you know, when you look at each one of the rooms in the building that kids at some point would be in, those can get, the price goes up pretty quickly. So that's what we did with that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. I agree with you with the AP tests. I know that's the discussion we had, especially where students are struggling to keep up as it is. The test scores are pretty low. I think to encourage students to keep climbing to achieve these goal markers, I think it's great that we encourage that and pay for that, because that is a burden on a lot of families, so that we're not discouraging students from, giving their ultimate best. Supply classroom to-go buckets. Is there a way that we can create a wish list to put online so that people can help donate to that? I also don't know if it may be a suggestion of our students who have volunteer hours, maybe help fundraise, maybe a great way to get them hours and help kind of alleviate that burden on our schools, and we can apply that money to other needs that we have. That interventionist, I don't know if it would be helpful, but I know a lot of the colleges do internships, and that might help alleviate some of the costs so that maybe we can utilize them more than that. I think that's a great idea, especially with the college transition, to have that coach and make sure students are getting everything they've done. That kind of frees up the school's time to be able to focus more on the other stuff, and then somebody can have that time to educate our kids and get them all ready for college. So I support that. I think that's a great thing, and just think of internships with some of the colleges that I've been speaking with. They look for opportunities like that, which is a great thing for our colleges.
I will say that we welcome like student teachers and all of that, so I think even this year, we had a situation, and I went to the person from UMF that heads up that program, and, we weren't able to get anyone. Because a lot of times the kids the young adults want to be in their hometown. And there just wasn't anybody that was wanting to come to Winthrop for the second semester. So we do pursue those opportunities.
Yeah, I was going to say, it looks from the description of the interventionist teacher that you're looking for someone who's really highly skilled and experienced, because there's a lot to do here, and to have somebody who really has an understanding of the system. What you said, though, I think is a great idea for follow-up. I don't see how it would fit Jay's vision for the interventionist teacher to have an intern, but to open up to some interns, I think it's a great idea.
I want a full-time person, but half is better than zero, right? And I think, to be honest with you, in this kind of position, in my opinion, the content knowledge skill set is secondary to me, to finding the right person who builds positive, meaningful, lasting relationships with kids. If I can find that person, then the other stuff, the team of high school staff can build up.
Thank you. Any more questions from the board? Okay, thank you very much for the presentation. Our next presentation will be Laura Snell from the middle school.
Hello, we're on page 10 of your packet. Mine is very short and simple. I do want to note, it's not on this page, but we have drastically reduced our supply line by $6,000, slashed it. Right now, each classroom teacher gets $200 for supplies specific to their classroom and their content that they're teaching, and then we have a supply closet. So we're very mindful, taking inventory throughout the school year of what supplies we do need for teachers. I don't want teachers to purchase things outside of, on their own. So we've been very mindful of getting the things that are necessary and not having an abundance of just miscellaneous supplies. So that's how we were able to come up with that significant reduction in our supply line. So you will see an increase in the middle school budget for contracted service, not for an interpreter service. We use Pine Tree Interpreting Services, their agency, and we have an increased need, so we've doubled that for the next school year. This year, the assessment line was non-existent, so we do need that assessment line put back in for our students. We do test in the fall and we test in the spring, both with our NWEAs, and we are currently still using that fall data to prepare for the spring right now. Professional development. You will see this with Megan as well from the Director of Teaching and Learning, because that's really her realm. But I would like to do a book study with the staff. Mr. Burnham and I are passionate about doing more response to intervention and training our teachers in that, and to really get in its database where are our needs for our students. So I have put that money in so that we could do a book study year long and really work with our students and staff. That way the two of us would be leading that. And then under administration, we are just trying to make it very clean and specific. It now includes the principal, the dean of students, and the administrative assistant for the principal's office. And I will say thank you to the Maine Principals Association, because for the last 3 years they have paid for all of my professional development, so we had to increase it this year. And then under curriculum, again, this is where Megan and I will be overlapping, but there's some specific needs because we have some unique needs at the middle school right now. And one of the things that we're trying to do is really look at the whole child and look at wellness globally. Taking our health teacher, our guidance counselor, physical education teacher, and working on it. Oh, and the librarian who teaches digital citizenship to all our 6th grade students, looking at that wellness, goal setting, aspirations, collaboration, decision making, internet safety. So we're looking at a program that we can use to teach it within those different classrooms. So really looking interdisciplinary and working together. So that's why there is an increase there in that line for both, well, 2 lines, under health and then under the digital citizenship piece. And it would come out of the curriculum and instruction line and materials. Another significant increase is our committee work. Based on the collective bargaining agreement, we have a nice safety team, just as the other 2 buildings do. And that we're trying to do it during the school day, but not always, that can always happen. So we're doing it after school. We also have we're developing a leadership team. At the middle school, we've never had that. We've always done it within the building. Teachers have not been compensated for that. It's been done during the workday, so it hasn't been as structured and specific. And so I built that in this year because I really want to have that conversation and that professional development and that work with the leaders in the building. Mr. Burnham and I meet with them regularly. This would give us a really concentrated time to do it. Maybe even some summer work to plan for the future. You'll notice staffing adjustments. We have cut a teacher due to our numbers and trying to be fiscally responsible as well. We've done that. We've also reduced the art teacher, and we added half of the interventionist. Remember, initially at the beginning, I've asked for a full-time interventionist and was not cutting anything. So looking at how can we restructure, how can we still meet the needs of our learners, because that's the primary goal, keeping our team structure and trying to do that. And this is one of the ways we were able to do that and come to you looking for that support. You will notice on the next page our enrollment size. Again, as Mr. Dufour just said, it's fluid. We have not created our schedule yet. We have some ideas, but mathematics is very specialized, and we have specific classes that we have to teach. Therefore, some of our numbers may not look like that. So it could say 8th grade, it's 18 to 1, but not every class will be 18-to-1 because we have algebra or we have an accelerated 7th grade math. So that's how so right now, Mr. Berman and I are working with our team to look at our schedule. What will it look like? We do have some shared staff at the high school as well that we have to take into account when we're building our schedule. So we're not sure what it looks like yet. So even though these numbers state what they say, some classes are that, some are larger. But I don't want to go back to where we were last year when we had class sizes of 25, 26 at the middle school. That's just not good for our education. I will take any questions.
Thank you very much, Lori.
I have a question. I'm looking at the school levels, the amount of students, which from the high school, I just peeked at all the way down to the grade school. So it kind of guesstimating, it looks like we're going to pretty much have about an average of 60 students from each grade level for a little while.
Yes, we have a reduction at the middle school that we have not had in the last couple of years. I will have one, at the middle school, we'll have one larger class, and then we're going down for the next few years. Whereas Mr. Dufour is going up because we've sent large classes the last 3 years.
Yeah, because the way we've been up and down, this kind of makes it easy to kind of project.
And I've been working with Mrs. Randall on what the incoming, what the current 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade student numbers are.
So the interventionist that you're looking to get, half a position, is that something, I don't know how it compares with what the high school's looking for. Is that something that we could possibly look into hiring one person to cover both? Or is that something we're looking for 2 different people?
2 different people. It's actually 2 very different scenarios, both working on skill deficits, but very different because at the high school they are doing credit-based and they have things that they have to have required that way. At the middle school, I'm looking at where are students lacking in skills? What do they need for remediation? How can we target that? Are they having an issue with comprehension? So we're going to do targeted lessons for comprehension. This, as well as the high school person, would be a fluid group. You know, students wouldn't necessarily always be working with the interventionist, but it would be very skill specific and targeted based on data, based on classroom data, as well as our state assessment data.
Awesome. Sorry, I don't mean all the questions, but I'm just trying to think of things that would help our
I
community.
got that same question. I'm happy to hear that, I'm happy to hear that it would not be a shared position because I understand that, yeah. You're looking at 2 different animals there. I just wanted to commend you on the drastic cut for your supply line with the savings of $6,000. So the way that you went about it with the $200 per teacher in the supply clause, I wonder if the board might recommend that that Lori kind of give that model or share that model with the grade school and the high school. I mean, that's I get heard. Oh, sorry to.
Yeah, I was just wondering, you know, if we could recommend that Lori share that savings model in terms of supplies, and not that it would be obligatory necessarily for grade school and high school, but it's a pretty impressive savings.
I do want to say though that we are the smallest building with only 3 grade levels. So I do have that benefit of having that, but thank you for that. And I also will say that the teachers were very gracious and saying I can do without, especially for this upcoming year. They know how tight it is. They know what we've done this year. They've really reached in and checked out their closets, what they have, so.
I will say that is bare bones. I mean, when I think about, when I even just, I'm doing a project, I can easily spend $100 for some project I'm doing at home. So I want the board and the community to recognize there's not really savings to be had in, so I mean, this is just such a bare bone budget, and I think it's hard to apply the same model to the high school and the elementary school because of just different circumstances. So that when you're looking at, like, let's just go with the science class at the high school with the lab, I'm not sure $200 will buy a frog, right? So I think that's why it's hard to kind of do the same application. And the other thing that I would say that makes a difference, but I know Jolene is going to talk about her supply lines too, because I think, again, it's bare bones. And I just want the community and the board to hear that this, even though this budget is putting off a substantial increase that I know is hard, and it's hard for me to even present a budget with that kind of increase. Because of prior budgeting, this is really a bare bones. And so at middle school, you have a teacher who might be teaching the same subject area, so that can help reduce the cost. And when you're thinking of elementary, you also have to think about, you have classroom teachers teaching multiple subject areas, and also that you're wanting the learning to be more hands-on. So you're just talking about more glue, more paper, and that all kind of adds up. But thank you for asking about it.
So I appreciate that. I think rigorous inventory is always a good idea. Sometimes we've already got what we don't, and we've forgotten what we have. I had another quick question, and that was about the reduction of the art teacher. Sometimes that's hard for a community to hear. Or do you just not have the enrollment or interest in art? What's with that?
I was asked to make a cut, and that's one place that we could do that. And looking at our schedule and trying to keep the schedule, trying to keep student interest in, and we are able to do it that way.
So I think, Principal Smith, that they'll now have the same amount of art that they do with music. So we were blessed to have, additional art, but I think when we were looking at this budget, it didn't seem to be as painful to cut there. So it'll be equivalent to the amount of time. Every kid will still get art, but just, it'll be for less time than they've been getting at the middle school.
Yes.
I have a question. For time management wise, with the kids' schedule and stuff, is that something that the school would consider somebody volunteering to teach art to help kind of bring that to the schools?
We always love volunteers. We want people to come in. However, when we build our schedule, we can't depend on a volunteer to come in. So if we had a volunteer that wanted to come in and do a special project, we actually are trying to get people on Wednesday afternoons from 1 to 2 to do a 7th grade community time, right, Mr. Burnham? to help us with our schedule right now. So we're always willing to take someone and have it in. It's hard to build an academic schedule based on a volunteer. So that's the hard part.
Any other board members have questions?
I just wanted to follow up on that with the idea of, we were talking about the Rotary partnering with the grade school for some literacy stuff with volunteers. I'm wondering, does the middle school currently have an art club?
We have peak art, where we have advanced art, and if students show an interest and an aptitude for art, they actually come on Friday mornings early, start at 7 a.m., or they stay Monday afternoons after school, where students come and work on special art projects.
Fantastic.
Any other board members have questions? Okay, thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you.
Our next presentation will be given by Julie Randall from the grade school.
Good evening. I believe I'm on page 12 in your packet. So we'll start with that. So some of the highlights for us at the grade school. We're looking to bring back clubs at the grade school, which we have not had for a few years. So we are looking at 3 clubs. I was started out with 5 clubs and was told I was a little overzealous. So we are looking at 3, being a math club, a STEM club, and a game club. And underneath that is the student and staff support. Those are actually the committees that are in place. And again, that's in, we're responding to the new contract. And the committees that are in place are the SET committee, the school emergency team committee is in place. There's a leadership team, an RTI committee, and a school-wide assembly committee. So all of those committees, due to the change in contract, that's where that particular amount comes from. The next piece is the addition of a halftime ed tech, which is a little bit of explaining with that one. This is a result of a major change in our pre-K this year. So we have partnered, I believe Christina and I talked about this, the lady that is the in charge of SKCDC, and it's been between 15 and 20 years that we've had a partnership with them. So it's really a huge loss for us this year to no longer have their partnership. On one hand, it's kind of like a celebration because it means our community at this point in time does not warrant for us to have SKCDC partnering with us. So due to the funding not being needed according to the paperwork that's done for SKCDC, they will not be with us starting in the fall of '25. What that means for us is that we are losing 2 teachers who were funded through SKCDC. So, excuse me, we will continue to have our 2 teachers. I have a full-time regular ed tech position in the building right now that supports our K through 2 teachers as far as photocopying, tearing out pages. A little part of the day is for that type of thing that I'll tell you a little bit later how I'm hoping to support that. Because all the things that she does in the teacher's workroom allow our teachers to have more instructional time in the classroom, right? You don't have all these little ones trying to fumble through books and fumble through this and that. So it's huge for us to have that person because it allows for more instructional time. But she also does push-in, which means that she sits and works with little ones on their reading or their math. So she'll either push in or pull out and works with small groups too. So that's going to be a loss for us in one sense, but in the other sense, we're going to take that position and put that person into pre-K. So that will be our second person in the pre-K classroom. So instead of an SKCDC teacher and our teacher, it will be our teacher with an ed tech. So we have 3 sessions. That will take care of 2 sessions. The 3rd session is where you see the addition of the halftime ed tech, because we need that halftime ed tech for the 3rd session. There are 2 AM sessions and 1 afternoon session. You mentioned that Superintendent Foley mentioned that we visited with the Rotary Club, and I've heard a couple of you say about volunteers, and we have an extensive amount of volunteers for the breakfast cart and doing extracurricular things outside of the day. So our PTA is very, very active, but to find people that can do that during the day isn't so easy. So yesterday I proposed to the Rotary Club to see if they could maybe commit, and like Mrs. Smale was saying, you really need people to commit, to certain times and whatnot. And my hope is that I can find volunteers to commit 2 mornings a week for like 2 to 3 hours to do all that photocopying, the tearing of pages, and those types of things. Because then if someone doesn't come on a Tuesday, our teacher's going to be scrambling a little bit. If they were expecting something to be ready that day for them, they will scramble a little bit, but it's not going to impact the same way as, like Mrs. Smale said, you can't depend on people to do the actual instruction, because you need them to be there. So I have reached out to the Rotary yesterday. Fingers crossed, I'm hoping that we can come up with some sort of schedule for them to take over that part. But the other actual instructional part won't be able to happen because I won't have, sorry about that, I won't have the ed tech in place to do that. So I'm a little bit sad about that, but I realize that we're being very fiscally responsible too. The last big thing on here is the reduction of 2 classroom teachers. And yes, I'm taking a big sigh on that one. Again, it has to, Superintendent Foley and I sat and looked at our classroom sizes. And this year we have some classrooms that are quite small, which that's not a bad thing. But we looked at our numbers, and as of right now, at this moment today, this is something that we are considering would be a reduction in a kindergarten teacher. So we would be going from 4 classrooms to 3, which with the numbers that we have right now, which these numbers are projecting into 25, 26. So it's like the kindergarten number is like a current pre-K number moving into K. So we have looked at these numbers, not according to where we're at today as far as in a classroom, but where they'll be in fall of 25. So that was the one consideration, was a reduction in the kindergarten. And the other one was in 5th grade. Our current fifth grade class, as Mrs. Smale said, is a relatively small class. So not current 4th grade class going into 5th grade, let me re-say that. So they are a fairly small class, and actually the current 5th grade going into 6th grade is also. But we were looking at that and thought that going to 3 classrooms with a class size of 18 would be very doable, especially at that upper grade level. And then it's not on here, but in regards to my supply line, the supply line has not been increased. The actual figure might be increased. I shouldn't say it's not increased. The amount that is put in there per student has not changed for 3 years. So we have really tried to be fiscally responsible in keeping the amount per student at the same amount. It hasn't been different for the last 3 years. We also, Monica, you had asked about a supply closet. We do have a supply closet. And you are right, sometimes those supply closets, we lose track of what's in there. So last year at the beginning, not this school year, but 2 school years ago, we went through and did an inventory. So everything is inventoried, we know what's in that closet. And Kristen, the administrative assistant, Kristen Barnes, when she orders, she's a little scavenger online looking for the best deals. And she gets all the orders, so she knows, like, she can order in bulk too. So we try to be very conscientious of that. And with the supplies at the grade school, we do go through a lot of supplies. And we really try hard not to ask of anything of our families. And there are a lot of manipulatives and games that get replaced and new games that come in. So we're always, we want not only the regular supplies, but there are some things that we really know that we need or need to replace. And it's motivational, engagement, student achievement, trying to fill those gaps, trying to find things that will fit certain skills that need to be worked on. And I think I've covered everything, so if you have questions.
Right now, what is our current percentage of students in the pre-K in kindergarten that need services?
You know what? I'm not sure that I can tell you. Are you talking tier 2 or tier 3?
I'm not sure about the tiers, but those that need like assistance with learning, as well as the numbers that are, like, has CDS provided the projection of students coming in with needs for this next pre-K classes?
So Mrs. Fawcett can probably speak more to the CDS. And I actually, if you give me a couple minutes, I can give you exact numbers, because I do have exact numbers of where we're at right now with tier 2 and tier 3. Stacy Bourne, Kim Damon, Athena, and Robin just shared all those numbers with me because I was collecting it all for the Rotary. So I can share it in an email if that's okay, because I do have those numbers.
Yeah, just special needs is definitely something I strongly like to advocate for, and they're usually, since I was little, they're usually some of the kids that kind of get fallen between the cracks at times because we miss stuff, and kids very resilient and can compensate well on their own on things, but that's a big concern, and I just want to make sure that, we're not, adding more to our classrooms, and then some of those kids struggle, especially if we're not, noticing, that those kids have those special needs.
Yeah, and we will be doing screening in May. So it's the first week in May, I believe it's the 6th, 7th, 8th that we're going to be doing screening. So we'll have a little bit more information in regards to those new little ones in a few weeks.
Thank you.
I am sad that we are, maybe losing a couple of teachers. And when I look at these numbers, they're not bad if you compare them nationally or something for the classroom size for elementary school, but for a small district, and we all know that the smaller the classroom size, the more individualized the attention can be from the teacher. And even though, I'm really excited about the idea of the high school and the middle school getting the interventionists. We know we've got work to do when we look at the numbers. We know we've got work to do for a variety of reasons, COVID included. And I think that we're moving in a great direction, meeting those needs, becoming more cognizant and putting things in place. I just, the 21 kids in the 4th grade classrooms, in each class, with no ed tech. It's, for a small school district, in elementary school, it's, it's going to be a little bit of a challenge. So it makes me, I think you're being really, fiscally responsible to do that. I just, I wonder if that's really the direction that we want to go in terms of losing teachers at the elementary school level when children are first getting their feet under the first learning, hopefully to love school, to have that kind of teacher engagement, I think is just, the importance of it can't be overstated. I would hate to lose these teachers.
Thank you, I appreciate you speaking to that. Any other questions from the board?
Our next presentation will be given by Sid Fawcett from Special Education.
Good evening. I think everyone that's come up has said, I think I can be brief. I think I can be brief too. So what you're looking at on page 14, the first line you're looking at is the baseline budget for salaries and benefits for special ed staff. And what I want to point out to you is 91% of Article 2 is made up of salary and benefits. We have taken a look at the bottom of the page, you'll see the enrollment counts. Our numbers have been shifting. We've been having students, what are called graduate. They have returned to regular education instruction across the year, which has been fabulous. However, we are now at the time of year when our initial referrals begin to roll in. We currently have 7 students that are not accounted for in these numbers that are in the process of a special education referral. And I know of 2 students just today that requests have been made for an initial referral packet to be provided to the classroom teacher. We know some of these kids that are receiving Tier 2 instruction need help and support, and so those students have been in my mind as we've looked at staff. So I want to put that out there as we go through this. The second line that you'll see is for Apple TVs. It's a very small number. We are trying to get our special ed classrooms in line with what our general ed classrooms have. It's a small amount, but we're going to try to outfit those the best that we can. The last number is probably the number that is going to be the biggest increase in the budget and have the most impact. It's also the most confusing. And so I've made an additional flow chart that I think will help folks to understand this. I'm going to pass this out. And I'm hoping I don't do a poor job in explaining main care seat. I have been doing this job for over 15 years, and there are still days that I'm like, do I have this right? I think I do today. So Main Care Seed is a program through the federal government, so Main Care, and then Medicaid, that provides funds for eligible services for both special purpose private schools and for public school units. Services can include things like speech language, OT, PT, Section 28 services. And in Winthrop, we have been billing main care services for many, many years. We have used those funds to offset certain things. We've had a shift probably since 2020, 2021, and I'm not going to say the C word that happened, COVID. We're not talking about that, but since then, we've seen a shift in our reimbursement coming to the public school and what we also need to cover. And I'll explain that through this document. So if you look on the left-hand side, the public schools, so here in Winthrop, we are billing for all of those services I explained. So speech, OT, PT, and Section 28 services for those students that are eligible for main care. So I've outlined just a small claim, a 30-minute speech service. So the reimbursement rate is $36.12 for a 30-minute speech session. That's what we get back from Medicaid. Or I should say get back, excuse me. That's what the claim is for. What happens is the state advances funds to DHHS for us to cover what's called the state share. That is ultimately what the seed money is. So $13.49 of that $36.12 is the seed money. That's 38% of the claim. The way that the state collects that is by, they recover the funds for adjusting our subsidies in our the 279.
Yes.
The ED 279. I have so many EFS reports in the ED 279. So the red box is the seed. In addition, so $22.63 is left over when we take out the state share. We use a vendor here in Winthrop to help with the billing process. So our staff enter in their claim, their reimbursement claim, and the vendor takes a share of what we get back. So $3.97 of that $36.12 is what they take. So on a 30-minute speech service, we're making $18.66. Not bad over time. So each of those services we bill for, we get our claims back. Back before 2020, we were recouping from this over $100,000. The population of students has changed locally, We've had students move in, we've had students graduate, we've had students move out. So we only are able to bill for those students that are eligible. The other piece that offsets this is special purpose private schools. When we are unable to provide services locally in our buildings for students for a variety of reasons, we tuition them to a special purpose private school. They also bill in care. These students are our responsibility. So they will bill Maycare, same thing, the $36.12 for the speech service. The state share is still the $13.49, but because they are a Winthrop student, we are required to pay the seed for that out-of-district student. And then the special purpose private school then gets the $22.63 as part of their support from the program. What has happened is our number for reimbursement locally at the public level has decreased, and our share from special purpose private school has increased. So we're not making enough locally to offset the two numbers. This has been the last 2 years. And so when we looked at the difference, it's about $50,000 that our 8279 is being adjusted that we have not budgeted for. And so we've made that correction from this year, which is why that seed line went up by $50,000.
Just kind of for clarity's sake, can you give me an example of the sort of service that you would send somebody to a special purpose private school for? What sort of thing?
Sure. So typically we have students with significant behavioral dysregulation. We are equipped locally to handle at a certain threshold, but when it becomes significantly unsafe and we cannot provide a safe learning environment for both that student, other students, and staff, we opt to look at places that have more support that can provide that. That's typically what we're sending students out for.
Thank you.
Any other board questions?
The other piece I just want to clarify for Ivy, because you did ask about CDS. We are in a unique partnership. We do provide, we contract with CDS to provide services to our pre-K students currently. And that will continue. We've talked before, I'm not even putting it on, well, I'm going to put it on your radar, but not really on your radar. With the change in the law, the public schools will be bringing in 3- and 4-year-olds. And by that, I really mean 2.5-year-olds is what we're going to be responsible for ensuring services are being provided. They're rolling this out through the state. Cohort 1 is currently in process. They're looking for people for cohort 2. Dr. Foley and I have said, no, thank you. We will wait. We will continue to see what others are doing, and we'll continue to partner like we have been doing with those. So we do have those numbers. The projected enrollment that's here is based on those current students at the pre-K level that will be entering our kindergarten. We are well aware of those that have high levels of need, which is why our staffing numbers need to remain where they are. We are looking to reduce a half-time special ed teacher, as you see in that middle adjustment. Our numbers are, we're heavy at the grade school, we're heavy at the high school, and right now our middle school life skills population is very, very small, and they're transitioning to the high school as we speak. We're working on that process. And so unless we get a student that needs that type of program, we don't feel we're going to need a full-time teacher at the middle school to provide that level of instruction. So,
Thank you very much, Sue. And I appreciate the flow chart, because when we had our board learning opportunity and we were talking about this very beginning, it was a bit confusing, but this is very helpful.
it has taken me 4 tries to get this.
Thank you. Okay, our next presentation will be by Megan White, Director of Teaching and Learning.
Good evening, folks. So I'm going to present to different departments. So we'll start off by looking at some of the new projects, additional projects that are coming through technology at this point. So Dr. Foley has shared with the board and the town council that a significant safety need is an updated phone system. I'll just reiterate some of the talking points around that very quickly for anyone who might be joining from the public. Our current phone system is at end of life. So what that means is it is no longer receiving any updates. And honestly, we're in a situation where we can't even order replacement parts for additional phones if phones go bad. And we have, throughout this year, taken phones from non-educational spaces and moved them into educational spaces so that we do have the safety confirmed, but we are very nervous moving forward. Just an additional piece with that, with the phone system we're looking at a similar thing to what the town is currently utilizing for their phone system, so it would help create a consistent expectation across all of our buildings. Another piece for technology is earlier this year, the board approved a photography course. And of course, there's going to be some technology equipment requests for that. We are looking at 2 cameras, tripods, backpacks, and memory cards for that course. The last piece is something that the board might sound familiar from last year. Our old tech director, Paul, had put in for a RUST grant, and that was a regional grant for technology. And the coolest part about this grant is that we only pay 15% of the bill. It's a USDA grant, and we did it collaboratively with 6 other districts. And we were awarded this grant, which is great news, but we need to now come up with 15% of the funds. We do have another district who's acting as our fiscal agent, which means they purchase the things and then we pay them. And I've spoken with that district, even though we were awarded this grant this year, we are deferring our payment and ordering all of our stuff until next year, so that we're able to still take part in that without putting us into a muddier place this year. Something that was cut from the technology budget were smart boards from the grade school and middle school. However, this grant has those built in, as well as additional smart boards for high school. Part of this grant, and we're going to be developing a rollout protocol for this, will also be iPads for our youngest learners, as well as an iPad for each teacher, so that they're able to utilize that while instructing and keeping their confidential data that they need to access at the beginning of periods on their laptop. That might not all roll out next year, but the payments will be. It's a pretty heavy lift, right? So those are the pieces that are increases across technology. For curriculum, although the grade school did our literacy audit last year because we had those grant funds, the literacy cycle of review for curriculum did happen at the middle school, high school this year. So you're going to see a lot of literacy aligned pieces. At the grade school, we want to continue our IXL subscription. IXL is an online platform that serves 2 purposes. It can create individual student pathways for individual practice. It also has standard and program aligned practice, tasks, videos, support that teachers can assign to their students. So it's not just this individual piece, it also is a piece that they're really using in their classroom direct instruction piece to be able to formatively collect information on how their students are doing. And it's being utilized. This happens in 2nd grade through 5th grade for both math and ELA. So that would be extending those subscriptions. Initially, we were looking at purchasing 6 years. We split that subscription into still 6 years, but we're going to do a 50-25-25 model for payment to reduce, make our first round of reductions there. So it's a heavy lift this year. We'll be paying for the next 2 years and the following 3. We won't be paying. I really encourage Dr. Foley to do this because consistency and resources throughout our cycle is really important. And it's being greatly utilized. I met with the grade school staff today. It was great to hear such positive feedback. An additional curriculum cost at the grade school is going to be a Tier 2 intervention program. And I want to explain Tier 2. So we have students who have needs, and we're trying to provide in the classroom interventions to help support our kids who are here and our kids who are struggling here. So that's Tier 1. So then we identify kids who need a little bit more, right? And this might be, we heard a little bit about a push-in model where we might target those kids to get support from someone coming into the classroom. It also might be intervention that would be provided by our grade school interventionist, Kim Damon, or our learning lab, which is funded through title programs, but that's our tier 2. It's that middle step before you get to tier 3, which would be special education. So our current tier 2 teachers are phenomenal individuals, and we know that teachers, great teachers, have the highest yield, but they've reached out as wanting to have a program that can help support with content that they might not be able to provide right now, or really guidance on how to do that in a really sequential way. So this $8,700 is to support the purchase of SIPs, and I'm happy to sit down with the board to talk a little bit more about that. I also did bring some literature for that, because I know there's always interest on what those reading pieces look like. So I do have that I can share with you folks. I'd like to move into middle school. So at the middle school level, we also use IXL. In 6th grade, we use it for math and ELA to support the transition to middle school. But in 7th and 8th grade, we've decided to really only utilize it for ELA. The math teachers at that point want to kind of wean them off of it. They have a different platform that we purchased access to last year. So that continues into middle school with the same payment model. The next piece you're going to see both in middle school and high school, and so through the review process this year, and it wasn't one of my reports, but I think I can explain it a little bit more here. They've decided to partner with Common Lit. So Common Lit is a free, comprehensive online platform. You can access all of the materials right now. It does not cost anything to be able to access. It has a bunch of fiction and nonfiction text. They're categorized by grade level, they're categorized by lexile, theme, genre, lots of different ways that you can sort them, as well as related pieces. So our high school team is using this already very regularly to develop their curriculum. But this piece that you'll see on both of these is to want to expand that to the middle school. But the $2,500 is a 1-year sign-on to get professional development ongoing through the year to support powerful implementation. We looked at programs at the middle school level, and that really we have people who are experts in ELA and are very passionate and are able to really focus on that because they're really teaching that content area. So to support their needs and their desire, we thought that growing our knowledge. So the middle school will start with a foundational PD package, and our high school will have a secondary one, and we'll be able to record both. So the following year, we'll be developing our own warehouse of webinars we've recorded. So we'll be able to continue to use that for onboarding and for future years professional development. Principal Smale mentioned earlier around some resources needed for health. That was a position that was added to the middle school last year, and we really haven't had in-depth conversation around what that curriculum and programming looks like. So as she's restructuring her schedule and continuing with health, I think it's time to make sure we have the appropriate curriculum that's going to support that as well. And by curriculum, I mean programming that will support that. So that kind of brings me down to the high school. So through our literacy audit at the high school level, we had some really great conversation around engaging 12th grade coursework. And so we offer many dual enrollment courses at the senior level, but we're noticing that our in-house CP, which is college preparatory level, which traditionally has been British Lit focused, isn't getting the same interest that it had in the past. And it's not a requirement for graduation. So next year we're looking at refreshing that in addition to offering the traditional British literature. And the refresh would be a lot of changing the novels. So it's going to move it from, and I want to make sure I say this correctly, it's going to focus on classic and contemporary world literature instead of just thinking about British literature. And not just the classics, but looking at a little bit of both. So really providing hopefully a different and engaging literature piece based on the world instead of just one area of the world. So it's really not a new course, but with this different offering for that 12 CP, we really want to make sure that we're purchasing literature that is going to be purposeful and applicable for that course. So that's why you see that cost there. And then lastly, we're looking at changing one of the 9th grade novels through this conversation. Again, these are really great, rich meetings that we have. The teachers realize there's a lot of dystopian novels that are presented in 9-12, and that we really should and don't need to continue to do that theme. So the 9th grade teacher has been working with the librarian, and their goal will be looking at changing Anthem by is it Ayn Rand? I always mispronounce that first name. But changing that from that novel, pivoting from that novel to small group reading sets, which are going to be centered around the theme of belonging, which I love for our freshman class. I think that will be a really great shift, and it will provide an opportunity to differentiate as well, so to support books for those small reading groups in our 9th grade class. The next section are around professional development pieces. So several folks have mentioned that any committee-based work now, we are required by the new teacher CBA that was signed last year and implemented this year to pay teachers for that time outside of their contract time. So the curriculum work based on the teacher CBA, that's assuming that my curriculum committees are going to be running again next year. And we need to pay teachers for that time when it's happening outside of their contract time. And then underneath that, and I'll just give you another little quick thing about that. Next year, the cycle will be social studies. We haven't done that yet. The grade school was very excited when I met with them today to hear that we would be focusing on that next year. So that will be our area of focus. The last piece is requested coursework, and there was a change in the teacher CBA. For those that are in the collective bargaining agreement, so the teacher contract. The last rendition allowed 3 courses to be paid by the district instead of 2. And that was not budgeted for in the current year's budget, but teachers have had the right to be able to take up to 3 college courses. So the request for coursework next year is that hefty number. So what that means is at the K-8 level, we have 41 courses that were requested from 20 staff. And just to give you an idea around how the new contract impacted that number, 8 of those 20 requests, so nearly half of them are requesting 3 classes. So that is a big difference from 2 classes. When they come in at the U main, maximum of $1,900 a piece. 9-12, we have 22 courses for 9 staff members, and 6 of those 9 staff members are requesting 3 courses. So that change in the contract is actually making a significant impact in this. And these are just folks who self-reported wanting to take coursework next year. As it is part of the contract, it's something that we really can't move, and it's really hard to cut, because if people ask to take courses, it's part of the agreement that we've said we would, financially support. And that's a huge lift. I do have a staffing adjustment to share with you. Again, it's not related necessarily to technology or to the curriculum, but I also manage our ESSA grants, so our Every Student Succeeds Act grants type of money. And over the last 2 years, I've reported to the board that we're running up against a wall with our budget for that and the money that we received federally. And this year is the first year that we're really pushed against that wall, where we had to move some of the salaries and benefits from our Learning Lab, which is our grade school program, this summer into our regular budget to make sure we were whole. So we're going to budget that appropriately moving forward. So there is a 0.5 ed tech. That is going to be one of our 2 ed techs that are in the Learning Lab, which will be funded with local money. Again, I hope that's not a super surprise to you folks. It's been part of the report for the last couple of years, and it just so happens it lined up now. One last piece to share with you. I am the McKinney-Vento homeless liaison for the district, so I get referrals from enrollments, from our social workers, school counselors, anyone in the school, and I do outreach with families around how we can support their homeless students in our building. So our numbers currently are presented to you folks. That was as of February. At this point, we now have 4 students at the high school, so we do have 1 addition there. That puts us at about 10. This isn't more or less than we've seen maybe in the last year or 2. I did just take this role over this year, so I can't give you much historical data about it. We do have a building supply line of $500. We've been really fortunate over the last 2 years to have some state grant money that we've been using to support these families, but it's been a pilot program, which will be ending this year. So hopefully we're in a situation where that won't be a huge cost. We'll see that population get smaller, but that's something that's really hard to budget for as well. a requirement for our homeless youth would be providing transportation, which is one of the biggest costs. So if they're, couch surfing in a nearby community, we need to get them here, and we need to pay for that. So that is somewhat volatile, but it's something that I wanted you to be aware of and know what that population looked like as well. And at this point, I'm happy to take any questions about technology, curriculum. I know it was a lot.
Thank you very much, Megan. Does the board have any questions?
Just a comment. Thank you for this. It was really thorough presentation. All of them were really thorough and terrific. And I'm super excited about what is happening with ELA at the high school. And yeah, this is great.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So this would be the board's first opportunity. We have no more presentations, formal presentations for the future, to discuss next steps or whether they're, you're comfortable with. I'm not expecting a vote tonight, but I need to kind of know where the board is thinking or whether they need further information for our next time.
I would really like, as a board, to discuss the idea of retaining those two teachers that are on block for the grade school for some of the reasons that I said. We know how important it is to have small classroom sizes, and those school kids are just getting their feet under them.
Yeah, I agree, and I said this multiple years. I look at what we spend for this district compared to others in the world, and then we actually need to spend all the line that we need to fund our schools.
Okay. So I'm going to propose that we change that and that we retain those two teachers.
I'd like to look at the transportation line and really drill down through there. I know that salaries were placed very high as they weren't really considered as to the impacts as well as what we pay for our drivers and the amount of hours and stuff that we've had. That's an area I think that we really need to look at before we allow anything to impact. And now that we have an opportunity to adjust some of the pay, I think that's something that we should really take a look at, especially when we're trying to project costs for the next couple of years.
Would you want to speak to that?
Well, I'm not sure if well, let's just kind of review where we are. We've cut a bus driver. We've cut the hours to, we had 2 year-round drivers, and we've cut that down to basically 1 year-round driver. We've cut hours to the floater bus driver. I want to make sure the board understands that we have a current working agreement, so we cannot reduce the amount that we're paying per hour. We're currently in negotiations with the bus drivers, and we are headed to mediation. So I don't see that we can adjust the what we're paying the drivers. I don't see us having that contract settled by the next board meeting. I'm currently without a transportation director, and we are trying to assess a need there, but that I don't see us being able to determine next board meeting on there. So I'm not, we're selling the car that the transportation director had, and that will go as a revenue. So I'm a little bit at a loss about how we could reduce in that department more, but I'm happy to go back and you know, take a look. I know one line that we put in was for the electricity for the electric school buses, so I know that was one of the increased costs. It looks like there's a huge increase in that line, as I explained when I presented the transportation budget, but there really isn't, because what we have done is we've put all the lines for transportation under the transportation budget, which we had previously not done. We had part of those costs were in the co-curricular, for athletics, for extracurricular. And I'm also happy, Ivy, to have you come in so you can kind of look at the detail in those lines. That, you know, I've offered that, and that offer remains for any of the board members or any of the community members. But, you know, I will take another look, but I feel like you have an idea in mind, and I just don't know what that is. Because we can't reduce their wages or benefits.
Right, my concern is last budget season, I had brought up a lot of red flags. I was actually nailed to the wall by our community for bringing up red flags and bringing transparency for people to understand. We are now upside down on our budget, which raises even further concerns, and I know there's still a lot of people that are concerned, because now our schools and our students are suffering, you know, the consequences for the you know, not budgeting or whatever has occurred. I look at some of the monies that we have paid as backdoor agreements for positions. It is a concern when we're paying more for certain positions than some of our teachers who provide more services to our students, which is concerning. I know when I have requested information on that budget line for transportation, I was told that it's none of my business. They can't provide the information, the vehicle, and I still do have those emails that the vehicle is not my concern. And obviously now we found transparency that vehicle was purchased when we needed those funds to be elsewhere. And my concern is now we've had to, every school and all our children has had to stretch funds this last year. That impacts our students' education. It impacts our teachers. It impacts our administrators because it's stressful trying to accommodate and to meet all our needs. And now, again, we are here because now our community members are struggling as well. Families are barely putting food on their tables. That impacts the students even well. So if we look at the whole entire picture, if we want to look at the whole child, they are receiving quite a bit of an impact in many different directions. And for us to, you know, try and provide more for our schools and then, you know, demand more for our families and raise taxes, you know, we're now, it appears we're in this insanity circle, and the ones that are still going to bear the brunt are our students. And they are already, you know, need that support for their education. I mean, our test scores show that we have an issue. Transportation department, the fact that we are paying higher salaries for positions being a small district that are not as competitive to these other schools that are around us, that is concerning. I know that there could be cuts now that Josh has retired. His salary is a lot higher than most people's that were in the area, and that is a concern. So why are we going to further impact our families and our students and our schools and our administrators? Teachers do spend a lot of money out of their own pockets just to try and help. This is an area I feel that we should be able to really sit down and talk about so that we can try and provide, you know, more for our students and kind of alleviate some of that burden from our community members. So I think it'd be great that if we can talk more on those.
Thank you, Agnes.
Like I said,
Again, my door is open if you want to look at it closer line by line. We have to get our kids to school. We do not currently, especially not having one of Josh's skills was he could drive a bus, so we're basically right now, we don't have that cushion. I just don't see us, I don't see a position that's left in the transportation department that could be cut. I hear what you're saying about Josh's position, but, I'm just saying to the board, I will not be comfortable saying that we could go down to a halftime, for example, if I just put that out there, a halftime transportation director. I'm not going to know that by the next meeting. Even if we could go down to a half a position for a transportation director, we might be saving $40,000 there. The two teachers that you're requesting to put back in the budget will put off an additional %, and so we will be, by doing that, we're going to be back up to, if we're at 9.7 right now, we're going to be up to 11%. And, I definitely appreciate what Tim said. I hope that we can not have to go deeper in the cuts. I will share with the board and email the board the research around that John Hattie has done, and that when you have class sizes that we have, even with these cuts, that student learning is not impacted. Now, does a teacher prefer to have fewer students? Absolutely. But that is just what the research has shown time and time again. We're very, very fortunate to have class sizes here of, I think all of our class sizes that we're presenting tonight are 21 or below, and that would be an envy of most districts. I think it is one area that we are super fortunate, right, to have here. If the board thinks that we can pass an 11% budget, I'm happy to put the two teachers back in, but I think that is a heavy lift. One of the things I will try to have for the next board meeting is maybe Nick could join us and do the revenue side of it, so you can see that piece too. And I think that would be helpful before you really, you need to have that before you're voting on the budget.
I would really like to see that research about classroom size.
Happy
If you could send that to me, that would be great. I would really like to, that would be reassuring.
Yes,
If that's
thank
the
you.
case, that would be somewhat reassuring. Okay, however, I'm really going to urge the board to see if we can keep those two grammar school teachers. Another reason why is we're losing Jolene. We can see what she has done over the last year. It's phenomenal. Now we're going to be getting, I don't know who, maybe how untried or experienced he or she may be, I don't know. But to lose teachers on top of that with the transition that naturally occurs when you've got a new administrator in a new position, I would, if you don't ask for what you want, you're not going to get it. No. I don't want to see our teachers cut, especially at the elementary school level. So
Thank you, Rhonda.
Do we have any budget workshops for the board that are planned? Because I think instead of meeting individually to get that information, to be able to sit down as a board where we need to, have all this information. I didn't hear that we were having one this year to be able to ask those questions and learn more.
Well, I think we have the three, we had 3 board meetings this month, right? And so one of those is technically designated a budget workshop that Lisa has done in the past.
Yeah, so again, the next board meeting, the budget is on there, and there's no more formal presentation, so that will be just complete discussion or questions, and I will continue to urge, the more you can send your questions ahead of time, the more thorough answer you'll get. And then on March 20th, it's basically another wonderful opportunity to meet with each of the administrators one-on-one in the area that you're interested in looking at. And that is, I would say, a very creative budget workshop.
Was that March 20th?
Okay, if you don't have any more questions, then let's continue. Yeah.
Just one more thing. I don't know if it's this year, if it's in, gotta be careful here. We gotta start thinking about increasing supply levels.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, the classrooms, is at $200, doesn't get you very far. That definitely needs to be bumped up.
Just for a reference, in previous districts that I've been, it's been easily 800 per teacher.
Thank you. I guess I'm looking at this next year's, this year, we're going to predict, we had several issues come up. Everyone has done such a great job at working with what little we've had. And so it's a scrimp year. Next year is a bare bones year. It's not exactly a scrimp year, but we're not, there's small changes. We're getting over that 5.6% deficit that we've started out with this year. If we didn't have that deficit, we would only have a 3.8% increase.
I think it's at like 4 because of the 50,000,
Oh, that
right,
percent
that we
change.
just
Yes.
learned about. I think we're at like a 4.1.
Sure. So that 4.1 is more consistent with what we've done historically. So I feel like,
And if you look at your overview sheet, I think this is a really important thing to point out that we talked about. You have, I don't think historically, you have been around 4%. I think if you had been around 4% historically, we wouldn't be in this hole. May I point out that in FY22, you were in the negative.
I agree with you, Alicia. I've been kind of thinking about it along the lines we're kind of in a rebuilding period. Unfortunately, I think the driver situation might be, while frustrating, and I completely hear the points that you're saying, it's also a situation that is being kind of rectified and worked out over time, and unfortunately, it's going to take some time for us to build to where we all would prefer to be.
so I guess for me, I support this budget as is. I think it's going to be a stretch in the taxpayer getting the community to approve. I've had emails come in from community members asking about things already. I can invite them to our March 20th forum. But I think it is a concern. And so having the concern, they're having some emails at the 9.7%, increasing it to 11%. I'm not sure how well that would be received, especially since we've already put this out there on the website. So I think it's good to have discussion. That's how I feel this time.
Yes, and one of the things that I ran on was watching our bottom line and making sure that we are spending money in a fiscally responsible way, and I am committed to that. I would like for people to know that we're losing 2 grade school teachers and see how they feel about that. Because numbers sometimes, oh, we're gonna have a, this percentage amount increase, the school board's asking for money again. But when they know brass tacks, there are gonna be 2 less teachers in our school.
I'm happy to bring that back with the numbers as is and with that, right? And present both at the beginning of the next meeting.
Sounds good, thanks.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll move on to, no old business today, so we'll head into our new business, starting with our FY26 school calendar discussion.
I'm not presenting this for a vote tonight, just to just kind of inform you that I've had meetings with the administrative team, and I've sent this out to the association, and I've met with area superintendents. One of the things when you build a school calendar is you cannot have more than 5 dissimilar days to the districts that are sending to the same technical school. And you can understand why that would make, CATC very difficult if you have, 4 or 5 schools and we have 25 days that are dissimilar. So in this calendar, as presented tonight, there are 4 dissimilar days in the calendar, so we're well within that guideline. I also just wanted to point out March 20th is a change. That's one of the dissimilar days, and I'm going to have, I think, Megan White come up to kind of speak to that. And that was a request from Megan because it's an opportunity for professional development for our teachers.
So something that we utilize some of our title funds for is the membership to the Western Maine Educational Collaborative. And I've talked to you folks a little bit about what this provides to us. One of the things that it provides is these communities of practice where teachers who are in one-off positions can log in once a month with area school people in the same position and collaborate and work together. They have a pretty extensive board of directors. I work with the curriculum team through there, and they also have a professional development committee. In the past, they brought us our keynote speakers in the fall for a very discounted price. So like $400 for a live Zoom with someone who would cost thousands of dollars, but we shared across, I think there's 14 partnering districts. So every 3 years since COVID, which means that we're right about there, they put together what they call the Rendezvous. And this is kind of a really cool opportunity for all of the schools and the teachers within the schools to put together professional development presentations. It's teacher presenters, kind of like what we do here in-house, but on a much larger scale. So all of the schools will be having teacher presenters. I'll be encouraging our own, who we've been working on the last 2 years as they've been developing their own for our own workshops, to present across and to all people in all of these other districts. So traditionally it happens on the UMF campus. We have our whole staff go up for that workshop day. It's literally like a conference where they get to sign up for sessions that are put on not just with their colleagues and peers in-house, but those across other districts. So a great opportunity to network, a great opportunity to learn and see what other school districts are doing. And our dues pay for our access to that. So it's something over the 3 years. It is not an additional cost for us. We just have to get people there. And I'm really, really excited. It is, we are, I think, one of 2 schools in the Kennebec Valley who are part of the Western Maine Collaborative. And that is why it's a dissimilar day. It is not, Augusta is not part of it. And so us, and I think it is 38, which is Marina, are both members of that group. So 2 of the smaller districts. So this is why it has to be a dissimilar day. But it's an opportunity that if we were to send each of our teachers to a conference would be a crazy thing that we would not be able to afford. So I'm very excited that we're presenting you with a calendar that will be able to provide that opportunity to our staff.
Thank you. In addition, we have the last day is June 11th. A couple of the districts the whole 2 weeks off at the December break. And I am trying to avoid, with our budget constraints, I'm trying to avoid having to pay for Juneteenth. So if we took those 2 days off, then we're going to be going later in June, and I think there's a good likelihood that we would then be having to pay additional staff. So that's why you see the December break the way it is there. And then the other big change from the current year is per the teacher's contract, they now have 6 workshop days, and so that is reflected in this calendar anywhere there where you see the W or the WC. Just a quick over.
Thank you. I have a question. So remember this time last year when we were, maybe it wasn't this time last year, but remember when we talked about spring conferences for parents, and we had all kinds of parents in the community who really wanted that and came out and filled out the petition, etc. And we said, well, we can't do it this year, but we'll look at it next year. Now's the time to look at it. When we're putting together this calendar, now's the time to consider that. Maybe not tonight, but.
So I wasn't here, so I don't remember that conversation. But I will say that after 6 months on the job, that I would not recommend that. I mean, if there are, we are always open to meeting with parents anytime that they would like us to. And I'm not opposed to spring conferences, but the situation that we're in right now in Winthrop Public Schools is that we need to get the trend going the other way with our student achievement. And I've talked about this in my overview of the budget. In order to do that, we need professional development, because you're only going to do better when you know better. And so what you would be trading for the conferences is a day of professional learning. So right now, in the future, it may be a great idea when we're trending up, but right now, I think the need is to increase our professional development for our staff. Heidi?
I had actually proposed last year because teacher development, I and the whole board agreed that that was extremely important. We also agreed, and hearing from our student members on the board had also shared that that doesn't work as well for the high school kids, especially those that are in some of the classes. And they're very well to advocate and bridge that gap between the teachers and home as well. And it's great skills like they had shared for moving on to college. One thing I had proposed so that we could kind of maintain both, and it's kind of hard because teachers are very busy, they have lives and families of their own, that instead of, there are some students, yes, that we do need to reach out and support more often. I understand that because I had one of those children. But to make it easier to maintain the both teacher workshops, but have a month that parents knew that that's when the perfect time they can request that one-on-one with the teacher if they need to. Having a child, I had a child in each school last year. Having that guaranteed second workshop didn't work well for my middle and high school child. For one of my 2 children that I had at the time in my grade school, it would be desperately needed for one and not as much for the other. So I understand those different perspectives, and that's why I think in order to help our teachers, help our cost for our school, parents had that comfort knowing, okay, well in the month of, September or whatever, that was a month that was perfect time if they needed to or wanted to help bridge that gap between school and what they can teach with their child at home to kind of help with that. So I don't know where that went either.
So I do have a comment to respond to. I just noticed, both at the grade school and the middle school, that there's been so much invitation to the parents in the form of newsletters and things that I've seen go out to invite parents and to have them and encourage them to reach out to their teachers. And I think that was kind of the compromise. They did that willingly on their own, but I think that the invitation is there to let parents know.
I was just sharing what we had talked about last year. You know, I mean, this has just come onto the table now, so I'm just trying to share what they had talked about.
Something to say?
Yeah, I just want to be careful too, we pick a month and we're promoting it. And we're promoting it and we're having, can't turn parents away, obviously. We're having parents come in that normally wouldn't and don't, which again takes up time the teachers from. As we've seen, the teachers are reaching out already all year long, so those kids are getting those connections.
And I think I may have Lori come up. I know that they kind of, I think, heard that message, and I think from a conversation that I had recently, that they're doing, because of the age of her students, I think the students are doing the conferences with the parents, which I think is a fabulous idea to you know, promote kids advocating for themselves and communicating with their parents. But I will, just as your superintendent, say, I don't want to designate a month because I want you to know that every month we are open to meeting anytime your child is struggling. And I think one of the messages I keep trying to put out there, and I will keep putting out there, is that in order to improve our dropout rate, it takes the whole community. And so we want you, when you see your child struggling and we're not noticing it, if we're not reaching out to you, we want you to reach out to us, because it's together that we're going to get our kids succeeding. So every month, every day is, I want to put out there, we're willing to talk to you. And so please call us when your child is struggling, and we are happy to set up a meeting at any time.
One thing that we did at the middle school this year, Mr. Burnham, please help me if I don't explain it correctly. We have done student-led conferences. So students set goals, they looked at their data, they looked at their goals, they looked at their learning style and their teaching style. So, or their teacher's teaching style and how they learn best, and they presented that in the fall. This spring, what we're going to do prior to April break is students are revisiting that with their connections teacher. They're looking at their goals, they're doing an assessment. They are then going to present a Google slideshow to go home to their parents to do a goal update, talk about where they are, how they're going to end the school year. Parents will receive that, they'll receive a little sign-off sheet on that. So we know that indeed the students did do that. Now, we do have some students who don't take their technology, they don't take their device home due to multiple circumstances. We will make accommodations for that, so those parents can come in, they can see it, or they will share their goals and things with us in the school. But that's one way that we're reaching out to our families and putting the onus on the students. It's their learning, it's their, their goals, and we want them to share and communicate with their parents their celebrations, maybe their need for learning, and to continue to grow. So that's what we're doing at the middle school this year to help meet that need.
Thank you very much. Okay. We'll head into our next topic for under new business. I'll entertain a motion to approve the policies for first reading. ADF, commitment to learning results, and EEAEAAR, the drug and alcohol testing of school bus driver admin procedures. Thank you.
So moved.
Seconded.
Okay, any discussion?
Okay, I think it's in your packet on page 16 and 17. So the revisions that you're seeing on page 16, you will see that this policy was last reviewed in 2008. So that was a while ago, and so it's been so long that I couldn't find anyone who knew why we're calling this the parameters for essential instruction. So we're deleting that, we're including the guiding principles, and you can see there's some small change around, including the standards-based system of learning and assessment. And the change at the bottom is just wordsmithing to make it read a little bit better, and putting in student achievement. I'm going to move on unless there are questions on that one. On the drug alcohol testing of our transportation department, the only recommended change in the policy is at the bottom of that first page, and there are some drugs that have been added that they can be tested for, which would include PCP, ecstasy, and heroin. So that's the major change. There's one other minor change on page, with the department on page 20.
Any comments, questions?
And the policy committee, Ivy, Dr. Foley, and Megan, and I all looked these over, and that's what we are recommending along Dr. Foley.
Okay, all those in favor? Unanimous vote, thank you. Okay, moving on to 6.1. I'll entertain a motion to delete the following policies as recommended by the policy committee. JGF, restorative justice, and JGFR, restorative discipline.
So moved.
Seconded.
Any discussion on that?
This is coming about after consultation with all three principals that really we don't believe that this should be a policy. We are all believers in restorative practices, but because this is in a policy right now, it's outlining the way the restorative justice should go, and restorative justice can look, there's a variety of ways that it can present and be used in the schools, and all three of our schools are currently using them, but not always following the circle. And so these are, this really should be a procedure, and I think that all of the principals kind of reflect that we do this in their handbook. So that's why we're recommending it.
Yes, I just wanted to say, so at first I was alarmed, what, we're getting rid of restorative justice? No. But as Dr. Foley just explained, the language in here is so specific that following the policy would compel administrators to do things that really would not necessarily be the best course. Okay, and so getting rid of this policy, we still retain the philosophy, and all the administrators do, Dr. Foley, retain the restorative justice philosophy. It's just that we are not putting into policy these specific steps which are outdated and which are countermanded in a lot of cases.
Thank you, Monica. Okay, any other questions or discussions? All those in favor? That's unanimous vote, thank you. Okay, we'll close up our new business and enter into our second public comment section of our meeting. Anyone wants to speak online, let us know. Or in the room, podium is yours. Okay, we'll close out our public comment section and end with our school board comments, if there are any, from our board or student representatives.
Real quick, this was so great. This was so thorough. I really appreciate all the hard work that went into this. It was just terrific. Thank you.
I'd like to make a recommendation for a future agenda to talk about the youth sports fees. From my understanding that we need to pay $2,000 to use the field in the fall. So I would like to open this discussion to the public. They are a 501c3. Most of our students attend these schools, so it'd be nice to put that on the agenda for communities and discuss that.
Thank you, Abby. Anyone else?
I don't know if we officially decided on if it was going to be added to the agenda, but the professional development versus another teacher workshop day. I just, with all the initiative that each school has taken, I would,
Joseph, would you lean in?
Yeah.
Thank you.
with all the initiative that the respective schools have taken, I would advise, I don't know, I would, in my opinion, I think we should just keep it. My personal opinion, like teachers to be more developed, but then that's fine.
Thank you, Joseph. I appreciate it. Any others? Okay. Well, without objection, I call this meeting to close at 8:01.